Thank you. Thank you, President Erdogan. We apologize for the failure of the system there. I now have the opportunity to call upon His Excellency Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
Today, the continent of Africa witnessed something shocking, something never seen in the history of international diplomacy. During the long-awaited G20 Summit hosted for the first time on African soil, the entire live audio system collapsed. Microphones died, transmission audio disappeared. YouTube and Facebook live streams went completely silent. This was not a small technical glitch. This was sabotage. And the world is asking one burning question: who is afraid of Africa's voice? Is this connected to the growing tensions between President Cyril Ramaphosa, Donald Trump, and Israel? Stay with us, because what happened today may change global politics forever. Brothers and sisters, today we bring you a shocking report from Johannesburg, South Africa, the host of the 2025 G20 Summit, a summit meant to celebrate the leadership of Africa, but instead it exposed the dark forces determined to silence Africa's rising voice. Imagine this: the world's most powerful leaders gathered in South Africa, the air buzzing with anticipation. Millions tuned in across platforms: YouTube, Facebook, television. Then, silence. No speeches, no press statements, just silence. What was supposed to be a defining moment for Africa on the global stage turned into a digital blackout, a silenced summit. And people across the continent are asking, why now? Who did this? And what does it mean for Africa's future? Today, we explore what really happened at the G20, the rising tensions behind the silence, and how this could be the wake-up call Africa needs. On what should have been a proud moment for Africa, South Africa hosted the G20 Summit, a rare opportunity for the continent to lead global discussions on development, climate change, security, and trade. But as leaders took the stage, something unprecedented happened. Live audio systems failed. Entire broadcasts went mute. On major platforms like YouTube and Facebook, viewers were left watching soundless video streams, like a movie with no script. At first, people assumed a glitch, but then reports came in from across different countries. It wasn't just one channel. It was everywhere, simultaneously, precisely as President Cyril Ramaphosa began to address the summit. This wasn't random. This was coordinated. Behind the scenes, tensions have been brewing. President Ramaphosa has become more outspoken on issues of African sovereignty, criticizing foreign interference and calling for a fairer global economic system. Recently, he's also made bold statements on Palestine, criticizing Israel's treatment of Gaza, statements that sparked diplomatic waves. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, though no longer president, continues to influence U.S. foreign policy circles. His administration had strained relationships with South Africa and the African Union, often downplaying the continent's strategic value. Then there's Israel, watching South Africa's growing role in shaping global narratives that challenge the West's position. The silence at the G20 wasn't just technical, it was political. It came as these global forces clashed behind the curtains of diplomacy. This is bigger than one summit, bigger than Ramaphosa, bigger than a broadcast. This is about Africa's voice. For centuries, Africa has been spoken for, not spoken to. Our stories edited, our leaders silenced. And now in the digital age, even our microphones are being hacked. This sabotage is a reminder. If Africa does not control its own media, its own technology, its own networks, someone else will. This is why Pan-Africanism matters more now than ever. Unity isn't a slogan, it's a survival strategy. We need continental cybersecurity, independent media, and infrastructure that cannot be muted by foreign hands. Here's the truth most won't say. This sabotage was a message, but not the one they intended. They wanted to embarrass us, but instead they woke us up. They thought cutting the mic would stop us, but it reminded us why we must build our own stage. Every African watching that silent live stream felt it. Not just frustration, but a spark. A realization that the time has come to stop depending on platforms that don't respect our voice. Africa must rise with its own tools, its own systems, and its own confidence. So what do we do with this moment? We use it. We amplify it. We let the silence be our spark. This is not the time to retreat. It's the time to rise, to build an Africa that cannot be silenced, to unite across borders, protect our sovereignty, and speak so powerfully that the world can no longer ignore us. Because if they silence our summit, we'll start our own. If they cut our broadcast, we'll build our own platform. And if they fear our voice, then we're finally doing something right. Africa, it's time to make noise. It's time to make Africa great.
Good morning, Your Excellency, heads of state and government, members and invited guests, heads of regional economic communities, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres, all guests who are gathered here. It is an honor and a privilege to welcome you as South Africa to this very first G20 Leaders Summit to be held on African soil. We gather here at the cradle of humanity in Africa to affirm our common humanity. We gather here to affirm the value of partnership and cooperation, to finding common solutions to shared problems. Shortly before the dawn of democracy in South Africa, the father of our democracy, Nelson Mandela, said, "The time has come for South Africa to take up its rightful and responsible place in the community of nations." Today, as we open this G20 Leader Summit, South Africa is deeply aware of the profound responsibility that membership of the community of nations places upon us. We also understand the responsibility of being entrusted with the presidency of the G20. In the execution of its task as president of the G20, South Africa has, throughout the past year, through its stewardship of some 130 meetings in various parts of South Africa, in other countries on the African continent, and beyond our shores, including at the United Nations, we have sought to undertake this task with care, with dignity, and with diligence. We have sought at all times to preserve the integrity and the stature of the G20, a premier forum of international economic cooperation. From its initial focus on broad macroeconomic issues, the G20 is now engaged on matters such as trade, sustainable development, health, education, science and technology, agriculture, energy, the environment, climate change, and many others. It has therefore broadened its scope as the challenges of the peoples of the world requires that they should be addressed. As the G20 countries, we understand that progress on each and all of these issues is a necessary condition for strong, sustainable, balanced, and inclusive growth. In pursuit of and in conformity with the founding mission of the G20, South Africa adopted the theme solidarity, equality, and sustainability for its presidency in 2025. Through solidarity, we can create an inclusive future that advances the interests of people around the world who are at the greatest risk of being left behind. This is important in an interconnected world where the challenge faced by one nation affects all other nations. By promoting equality, we strive to ensure fair treatment and equal opportunities for the individuals and nations of the world. The disparities in wealth and development within and between nations is not only unjust and unsustainable, it is also one of the greatest impediments to sustainable development. It is essential that we break down divisions of economic status, of gender, of race, and geography. Sustainability involves meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. As a founding member of the G20, South Africa has sought to ensure that the development priorities of the Global South and the African continent find expression firmly and permanently on the agenda of the G20. This is important not only for the people of Africa and the Global South. It is vital for global stability and security, alleviating resource pressures, managing population movements, and reducing the risk of conflict. We seek stability because it attracts investment, it improves planning and reduces the risk of global economic shocks. And we prioritize inclusive and vibrant markets because they are able to drive innovation and efficiency. Thriving economies lift people out of poverty. They encourage greater investment and trade, and they generate the revenue needed to invest in public goods. The threats facing humanity today, from escalating geopolitical tensions, global warming, pandemics, energy and food insecurity, to inequality, unemployment, extreme poverty, and armed conflict, jeopardize our collective future. It is therefore essential that we make greater and faster progress towards the achievement of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. We welcome the Seville Commitment adopted in June this year, which sets forth a renewed global framework for financing for development. We must use this framework to catalyze development investments at scale in developing economy countries. We must continue the reform of the international financial architecture, ensuring that institutions are strengthened and are more inclusive and are equipped to meet the challenges both of the present and the future. At the beginning of our G20 presidency, we identified 4 high-level priorities. Firstly, we focus on action to strengthen disaster resilience and response. While climate-induced natural disasters affect countries around the world, they have a particularly devastating impact on countries that cannot afford the costs of recovery and rebuilding. We have agreed that it is essential for the global community, international finance institutions, development banks, and the private sector to scale up disaster construction. Secondly, we agreed that we must take action to ensure debt sustainability for low-income countries. The G20 needs to renew its efforts to advance debt sustainability while at the same time laying emphasis on those countries in the global south that are suffering from debt repayments. Thirdly, we said we should mobilize finance for a just energy transition, increasing the quality and quantity of climate finance flows to developing economy countries. Fourthly, we emphasized the importance of harnessing critical minerals for inclusive growth and sustainable development through the beneficiation of the minerals at the place of extraction. In addition to these four priorities, we have prioritized issues of inclusive economic growth, industrialization, inequality, unemployment, and security and artificial intelligence. Much of the work of the past year will be presented and considered at this meeting. We commend in particular the G20 at 20 review, which provides a detailed account of the path that this organization has traversed as the G20. It describes both our achievements and our challenges and makes proposals on how we can organize ourselves to be more focused on our core mandate. We welcome the work of the G20 Africa Expert Panel, which was led by South Africa's former Minister of Finance, Mr. Trevor Manuel. The panel argues that African efforts to accelerate productive investments require new global partnerships and strong multilateral cooperation. It calls on the G20 to support this effort by building a global policy framework that unlocks long-term finance and lower costs and investment at scale. We are also grateful for the work of the G20 Extraordinary Committee of Independent Experts on Global Inequality that was led by Professor Joseph Stiglitz, a Nobel laureate. The recommendations of the Extraordinary Committee provide a solid platform on which to launch a renewed global effort to tackle inequality. As this is the first G20 Leaders Summit to be held in Africa, it carries the hopes and must reflect the aspirations of the people of this continent and of the world. We should not allow anything to diminish the value, the stature, and the impact of the first African G20 presidency. This G20 Leaders Summit has a responsibility not to allow the integrity and the credibility of the G20 to be weakened. In fact, from this summit, we should have a sense that the G20 has been strengthened. We thank all delegations that have worked together with us in good faith to produce a worthy G20 outcome document for this historic leaders' meeting. The G20 underscores the value of the relevance of multilateralism. It recognizes that the challenges that we face can only be resolved through cooperation, collaboration, and partnership. The adoption of the declaration from the summit sends an important signal to the world that multilateralism can and does deliver. It sends a message of hope and solidarity across the world. It tells the world that as the leaders of the G20, we will keep fast to our solemn pledge to leave no person, no community, and no country behind. With those words, I therefore declare the G20 Leaders Summit open, and thank you.
Thank you, Africa. Mama Africa. Oh, yeah. You make Africa great. Thank you, Africa. Thank you, Africa.
We apologize for the failure of the system there.
Yeah, that is the President Cyril Ramaphosa, the President of South Africa, apologizing to the global leaders who attended the G20 Summit in Johannesburg, South Africa, after failing of sound systems and experiencing difficulties on communication during the G20 Summit. President Ramaphosa has experienced another sabotage after that happened during the UN General Assembly. Remember, his mic was shut down, and today sound systems has been shut down and some collapsing. And this comes few days after President Ramaphosa having tension with Donald Trump. Some viewers who experienced difficulties have given some comments, and some said it's because Ramaphosa having tension with Trump. Some said it's because Ramaphosa tried to, of course not tried, took Israel to the ICJ. This is the reason, that's why he is experiencing this kind of sabotage. But let us look deeply on this issue. All of us, we know that in South Africa has white people, also has black people. The systems are always controlled, many systems in South Africa being controlled by white minority. Maybe this would be the reason that it will be easy for Western power, other countries, to use their cousins who are living in South Africa to betray or to sabotage what is happening in South Africa. Maybe this is the reason. But, it's because these systems, for instance, we have experienced difficulties on social media, and many social media are not hosted in South Africa. So maybe these social media, because are being hosted outside of the continent of Africa, those who own those social media have decided to cut off and to create some sabotage, maybe. But all in all, President Ramaphosa has faced another sabotage during the summit. As I said, this is not for the first time to experience these things happening to President Ramaphosa. And you can see that this global power want to show that they're so powerful. If you play with them, they can do anything. They can do anything. But why they fear Ramaphosa? Ramaphosa is like Malema? No. Ramaphosa is like Traore? No. But what they want is Ramaphosa to bow and to hands up and say, you are the great. But Ramaphosa has said, we can't accept bully. We can't be bullied by anyone, whether you are powerful economically, whether you are powerful militarily, but we defend our sovereignty. Maybe that's the reason why Ramaphosa has become the threat and the enemy of those who want to control Africa. But this has brought us to understand that the time will come that we Africans, if we don't think the future, if we don't think about owning our own things, our own resources, in the future, people can cut off. Whether it is aid, whether it is systems, whether it is transactions, people can cut off. It is happening to South Africa. It will happen to another country. Recently, I heard the issue of withdrawal of visa from the former Foreign Minister of South Africa, Dr. Naledi Pandor. US has withdrawn visa to her without reason, I think. I have seen something like that. So you can see this is the reason. When we say Africa, we need to unite, brothers and sisters. That's what we say. We mean that we need to unite, to innovate, to create our own thing, to control our own things. Right now, we cannot control anything. Sound is being acted because we are not the owner of these sounds. We are not creators of these sounds or these systems. There's someone who created these systems and sold to us, has control. Security systems are under control, satellite under control of others. What do we have as Africans? That's why we are saying we want a unity of this continent. Because if we don't unite, brothers and sisters, we will be punished, we will be experiencing sabotage the way President Ramaphosa has experiencing a sabotage. I remember even Malema experienced the same thing, and we have seen these things happening in South Africa. Not to Ramaphosa only, to those who are standing against the West have experiencing difficulties. So, brothers and sisters, let us not speak for too long. I'm waiting also to hear from you. What is your perspectives? What is your views on this issue, on this matter? So, brothers and sisters, thank you for watching. Thank you for being with me. This is what happened during the G20 Summit in Johannesburg, South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Africa. Mama Africa. Oh, yeah. You make Africa great. Thank you, freedom. Thank you, Africa.